So thank you everybody for coming today. I'm really grateful for your time. I know everyone's really busy. Jason, thank you for coming.
That's fine.
Obviously you know me, my name's Sue. I've been looking after your mum for several weeks on the ward now while she's been recovering from a hip injury. And I've had quite a lot to do with her, and I know you've met these guys on the ward briefly, but I'll let them introduce themselves properly, and then this is our social services representative. So, yeah.
Hi there, I'm Steve. I'm the physio working with Kitty. I know we've met a few times, so nice to see you again.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Rachel, and I'm the occupational therapist that's been working with your mum.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Gareth, and I'm East Cardiff Discharge Team Social Services. You haven't met me, but you met my colleague, and unfortunately she's off sick long term, so nice to meet you too. Unfortunately I haven't had time due to work pressure to meet your mother yet, but I'm actually looking forward to that, and thanks for coming in today. In terms of you should be in bed, I guess, you know.
Yeah, I was on night last night, so obviously I feel a bit tired this morning, so I should be in bed, but hopefully it won't last too long, the meeting.
No, I can only stay for half an hour because I've got another meeting in another hospital. I'm sorry, but I have to go and I have to leave, and I have to make that very clear at the start. I'm under a lot of pressure today. Thank you.
Okay, so why we're all here today is Kitty has been with us sort of about 6 weeks. She fractured her hip, didn't she, having a fall in the house. So she's had that repaired in surgery, and she's coming on really well. So what we've all got together here for today is to talk about getting mum home. All right, are you happy with that?
Well, obviously I want mum home, but only if it's safe to send home.
Okay, so everybody here has got different specialities. So what we'll do is we'll let Rachel and Steve and Gareth talk to you about their take on getting mum home, and then I'll chip in with what because obviously I see mum day to day for longer periods, and I'll chip in as and when. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely, okay. So, level of function. So mum's up and about with a Zimmer frame, so she's out of a cast because she broke her wrist. She's in a Futura splint now, and she's using, are you happy, Steve, she's using a normal Zimmer frame?
Yeah, so we've transitioned your mother away from the gutter frame, which she was on. It's obviously that big bulky frame that you've seen on the ward. She needed that because of the amount of discomfort her wrist fracture was initially causing her. What with being in the plaster as well, it was very difficult for her to form a strong enough grip for her to feel adequately supported. But because of the progression she's made, the exercises that she's done, we've now felt she's ready to transition off that onto a more, stereotypical Zimmer frame that you see day to day. You may have seen that towards the end of her bed. So we've been working with your mother on walking with that, and in terms of the challenges for her now is around balance really. The gutter she was on previously provided quite a lot of support, made her feel quite steady, but the one she's on now, the support is still there but less than it was previously, so we're trying to work on that balance and confidence, getting her to maybe take a little bit more weight on that right foot which she's fractured.
Yeah, because I visited mum in the hospital, and I have noticed she is improving, but obviously, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think she's fit enough, mobility-wise, to go home.
Yeah, I think what we'd like to know a little bit more around is sort of the distances involved in her walking. I mean, how far is it for her to walk, say, from her bed, where it might be situated, and we'll talk about that later, but where the bed might be situated to the front door? What sort of distance is that?
Well, the bedroom's upstairs. The toilet's upstairs. There's no toilet downstairs, so obviously she's got to use the toilet upstairs. She's got a double bed.
Okay.
It's a 2-bedroom house, so it's not big in St Mellons.
So Jason, what we're looking to do is to facilitate a safe discharge, and what that would encompass, as the occupational therapist, I've done some assessments with Steve, but I've also done a home visit with Kitty, and your wife was there as well. And Kitty isn't able to manage the stairs at the moment, so one of the things that we would need to consider is either bringing the bed downstairs. However, I can see that with the sofas and the other furniture, space is extremely limited. So actually what we might be thinking about is having to purchase a single bed that can be put downstairs for your mother.
Okay, so you're obviously going to provide that, yeah?
Unfortunately not. We are unable to provide beds.
Right, I can't fund it. I'm on a 0-hour contract. My mother's on a small pension, so who's going to pay for it?
So firstly, Gareth might be able to help you with looking at some funding for that, but you could also look at things like, Gumtree or Facebook Marketplace or things like that. These are websites, or FreeCycle.
The British Heart Foundation have got a furniture shop, haven't they, where they sell quite a lot of
So
furniture.
for it to have a second-hand bed, you mean?
Yes.
That somebody else has slept
Well,
in?
they are
I'm
approved.
happy with that.
They are-
approved when they're taken in by the British Heart Foundation. There is one in East of Cardiff which will help you, on Croyce Road in Cardiff. So I have had patients access that before quite successfully. I appreciate that it might not be to your mother's liking, but there is no funding specifically for that.
So who's going to fund it then?
Well, you're going to have to look at that, and it will depend on you.
I can't afford it.
Yeah,
Like I said, I'm on a 0-hour contract,
yeah, appreciate
so I
that.
can't afford it. My mother's on a small pension.
This is.
These beds are not going to be cheap, are they?
They are actually very reasonably priced because they're provided by a charity, and they're obviously very.
As in what's reasonably priced for you?
Maybe under £50, for a bed. But like I said, there are other websites that you could look at. So you could look at things like Gumtree or FreeCycle, and then what you could do is you could just perhaps hire a mattress cleaner or something, which is relatively cheap, so that you feel more comfortable with
So
using
can I just
second-hand
yes,
bed.
I just stop you there. So if I can get this right, so my mother's worked all her life. My father worked all his life. They paid all their dues, and now you're saying that now my fit mother, has fallen down the stairs and she's done injury to herself, and you want her to come out so you can have the hospital bed, but she's got to buy her own bed. That's not right. That's not right. That's ridiculous.
I completely understand, but there will be some other equipment that we will be able to provide that will help keep your mum safe at home. So other equipment that I think that your mum would need is, obviously I've said that she needs a bed downstairs, but then we would provide a commode for your mum to use until she's ready to go upstairs and
So
use
you
the
provide
toilet
them at
then.
your cost.
We would provide a commode
Right,
to
okay.
you.
And I just want to interject at that moment, because it seems like an important point to make. What you've said there is an important thing to bear in mind. This isn't a long-term plan that we have. We're going to continue with the rehabilitation with your mother at home for a
Right,
period of
okay.
6 weeks. Physio will be coming in to work on her walking, her balance, her strength, to progress that further, with the aim being that we do, within that time frame, return to mother going upstairs.
Right,
Absolutely.
okay.
Now at that point, you may wish to then sell the bed again, something you could do on Gumtree or whatever website you choose. You could then sell it and get a large proportion of your money back, fingers crossed. But this wouldn't be a long-term plan. This is just a short-term solution to get your mother home as quickly as possible, which we all know. That's where she really wants to be, and you know that yourself.
Yeah,
It's-
obviously she does. She does want to be home, and I
It's
want her
not,
to
it's
be
not
home.
just about hospital beds, but we want what's best for your mum.
Um,
Obviously there are those pressures as well, but we want what's best for your mum, and your mum has to go home safely, and we know that the longer people stay in hospital, they're at more risk of picking up infections. So while she's well, we really want to get her up and going.
Right,
So
okay.
please don't think it's just about beds.
And just to sort of interject here also, the aspiration is, as my colleague says, that mobility is returned. There's muscular wastage is quite chronic when people are in hospital for a particular period, so it is actually physically quite important. Just to come back to the financial element, which is kind of my thing really, it isn't just the actual bed you'll have to be sort of assessed for. So there is a financial assessment which every social service department has to do into your means and your mother's means to pay. So if there are other services which I think we are going to talk about today, for example Meals on Wheels, or for example respite care, to give you a break and to give her a change, and perhaps thinking about when we may be able to get carers in to support, all those will have to be assessed for financially in terms of her individual capacity to pay, and then dependent on her income and her savings, we will be able to provide, but some of these services will have to be paid for dependent on her actual financial status.
Right.
Just
Okay.
And I'm not sure if everyone's aware of that. Sorry, I know you are, but
So unfortunately, I don't really know what my mother's financial status is. It's a bit of a fractious relationship, to be honest. So I don't get too involved in my mother's financial side.
No.
I know she's only on a small pension. So whether she can afford to pay anything, I don't know really.
I would go through that with her and carry out the full financial
And obviously, I would
assessment.
like to be in those meetings as well.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. And then we would be able to, on a sliding scale, provide support in terms of how much we pay, how much you pay. As you're probably aware, this is going through government service at present. There's a big hoo-ha about social care. And the government are trying to fix social care, as Boris Johnson has said. So it is quite a topical issue, and people are getting, people out there are very angry because of the cost of care. So I can empathise with that. It's not the first case I've dealt with like this. Perhaps we can talk to your mother together, and that would be useful.
Just a few things, Jason. So first of all, I wanted to say that, we've had consent from Kitty to speak to you about her care today and what's going to happen when she goes home. And I know that she's told me she would be willing to share her financial information because she really wants to go home and she wants things to be sorted. But in the shorter term, what I wanted to say is that we would be providing a reablement package of care, which would consist of 4 calls a day, where carers would be going in to support your mum.
Right, okay.
I think it's important to explain that as an occupational therapist, I'm looking at the whole picture, and what I want is for, Kitty's mobility to improve, but I also wanted to get back to doing the things that she really loves and that's important to her. And through the assessments that I've done, what she said is important to her is things like being able to manage her own self-care, being able to get out of bed in the morning and get dressed and have a wash. So in that 6 weeks, we'd have carers coming in and they would be given instructions.
So can I just stop you a minute?
Yeah.
You mentioned 6 weeks just then. Steve mentioned 6 weeks with the physio side of it. What happens after 6 weeks then? If she's not improving as well as she should be?
So let me explain what the reablement part is first, and then we can move on to after the 6 weeks. So what will happen is that the carers will have very clear plans and instructions from the occupational therapist and physiotherapist about the activities that they're going to do with your mum. So they're not going to come in and get your mum out of bed and dress her. They're going to help her get dressed and help her to get more and more of that independence and strength and mobility back. Okay? And physiotherapists and occupational therapists would also be visiting at least twice a week in order to do more reablement with her.
Right.
After that 6 weeks, if your mum still needs care, which at this point we really don't know, so it's hard to plan for that part.
Yeah.
But if your mum does still need care, then that is something that would be means tested, which is why we would need to have a look at Kitty's finances, and she might have to make contributions towards that. However, that care package could be reduced significantly. So even though at the start she's having 4 calls a day to get her out of bed, to make sure she eats her lunch, to have her tea and to go back to bed, take her medication, it might be that actually all she needs help with is having a shower. So she might just need 1 call a day. So everything there is means tested, and we'll just make sure that she has the right level of care for her. And that would mean that she's only paying for the care that she needs if she does have to contribute.
She was very independent, because I chatted with your mum yesterday and she was telling me about all the things she used to do, and she was very independent, so she's got everything going.
Sorry to interrupt you, Sue, but she's very active. She loves her gardening, socialising. She's a very young 72, and unfortunately she fell down the stairs. That's just unfortunate. We can't do much about that, and hopefully she's improved fairly quickly. But she is a very active 72-year-old.
She's got everything going for her in that respect, hasn't she?
She's very determined, and the benefit of having the reablement carers in and further therapy from occupational therapy and physiotherapy is that we can actually look at fatigue management. Your mum's had some quite serious injuries.
Yeah.
She's been in hospital, she's completely out of routine and quite institutionalised. She's been in for 6 weeks. But what we want is, those carers to come in and to help her conserve her energy so that she can do the things that are important to her. So, for example, we know that she loves her coffee mornings. At the moment, it might not be possible within that 6 weeks to get her out to her coffee mornings. But if she wants a friend to come over, with the carers coming in and supporting her, she'd have the energy, you know, to
Yeah,
have that
yeah.
friend over and be able to socialise. And then as we're getting more and more stable, and as we're getting more improvement, we would start to be able to look at those activities that are really important to her, like gardening and going out into the community, perhaps to day centre in more detail.
Right, okay.
So it is an ongoing support that she will be receiving. In terms of therapy, if after that 6 weeks Kitty does need further physio or further occupational therapy, then that would be provided.
I'll continue. right?
So it will continue, but
Yeah.
It's difficult. I'm not sure.
at my mother's cost.
Well,
Yeah.
this is the tricky thing with the physio at the moment. I mean, it's going to... Kitty has her exercises, as you've seen her on the
Yes,
side of the
yes.
bed, and she's doing really well with them, and the progressions in her strength is because of the determination she has in doing those exercises. I feel as though if she's going to regain the level of independence she had previously, she's going to need to progress with those, and there's going to need to be perhaps an element from yourself of getting involved with that at home to remind her of doing her exercises and maybe do some of those.
I can see where you come from, Steve, but you know, like I mentioned, I'm a security guard. I work long shifts, 12-hour shifts. I don't drive, so I get up early in the morning to get to work. I come home late at night. I got a wife, 2 children. I see my mother maybe before this accident. I might see her once a week. I keep in touch a couple of times a week on the phone. But you know, due to my job, and my wife's a teacher, so she works long hours. She's got 2 children as well, or we got 2 children. It's really, really difficult.
Yeah.
Can I just come in there? That, yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, but since the actual NHS and Community Care Act, way back in 1990, hospital care has changed, and this comes as a little bit of a shock. I've had a conversation previously with my colleague Sue, that you were a little bit, angry is too strong a word, but a little bit perhaps taken aback at the discharge meeting was coming so soon in terms of your mother's hospitalisation. But unfortunately, well, aspirationally, as our OT friend has said, Rachel has said that it's better for the person to be in the community. So the support is there, safely in the community with risk. Hospitals have changed, institutions have changed. So philosophically, we actually believe in people being in the community. This is what the government is pushing. So the Social Services and Wellbeing Act Wales 2014 equally promotes this. To encourage people to be in the community, because we believe in the community people can undertake their occupations and can actually re-engage with what's important to stimulate them mentally that you've alluded to. So we're actually doing this to try and support you, but it is very early, and we appreciate that into her kind of hospital care. And people do think sometimes, oh my God, she's coming out, I've got all these issues, I'm a full-time worker, I'm on a 0 hours contract, which I appreciate you've shared. We are trying to sort of we will try and embrace this today, to take in all these variables into this little equation of discharge. So yeah, and the only other thing is that I'd like to say as well is that she is eligible for Meals on Wheels. If she's getting tested, means tested, that may actually be something that may appeal to her. They don't always arrive on time in terms of, 12 o'clock bang on. She seemed to be quite a structured lady from what they picked up from what's been said so far. And depending on traffic, they might arrive at 11, they might arrive at 2, which does frustrate some people, but that's the nature of the congested society we live in terms of road traffic, etc. So there are other supports which you may or may not be able to sort of have, or whether your family wanted to take a meal to her while she's kind of struggling initially. But as we've said, it's only a short term.
I appreciate what you're saying, but as a relative, I don't think my mother's well enough to come out, and it does seem to me that she's being sent out because you want the bed. On the Meals for Wheels side of it, that would be great if something like that could be organised.
Yeah.
Obviously, as a son, me and my wife will try and visit round and make a cup of tea, do meals if we can. But it is really awkward because we're both full-time workers,
The good news is that Kitty's now using a Zimmer frame, so she can have a caddy that attaches to that Zimmer frame. We would provide that. That means that she can carry her drinks and her food into to the table so that she can
Right.
eat comfortably. We would be, you know, there are a number of things that we can provide. So, for example, we would need to think about access in terms of having the carers and the Meals on Wheels ladies, or people, sorry, going in. We could provide a key safe. Some people are quite concerned about having a key safe because they worry about the security, but I can assure you they are used by hundreds, thousands of people in this area, and they're used safely. So each key safe is attached to the wall. It could be around the back of the house, at the front of the house, wherever you feel is most appropriate.
I've seen those before.
They'd all have their own separate codes, and the carers would know to, you know, mix up the numbers when they leave. You know, so would you, I mean, Kitty has said that she would be happy to have a key safe. Would you be happy with that as well?
If that's the only alternative, really, then yes, but obviously, you know, we'd have to ensure that the carers, when they do that, you know, make sure they change the code on a regular basis.
I can just assure you that the
Because my mother's
carers...
at home by herself and she's
Absolutely.
immobile, so if somebody was to get in, then, you know...
I can assure you that the carers are doing this, you know, 10
Yeah.
times a day.
Yeah.
You know, most
Just
people
better.
have, you know, because otherwise the other option would be to just leave the door open all day, which is not really
No.
the safest
It's not the type of
option.
area I'd be advocating of, having worked in that area for a number of years actually. So I think that would be, it's a kind of high crime area.
It is, yeah.
And I think, you know, I think we'd all be a little bit anxious about that. Just to come back to one thing about your mother, is that she's a passionate gardener, I pick up from her notes as well. And in terms of motivation and stimulation and kind of keeping her interested and active, would there be any adaptations you could do to her gardening in the short term that we could perhaps do? Is there anything that we could kind of think about as an occupational therapist with the gardening?
So I have discussed this with Kitty because it is very important to her, and gardening makes her really happy. Now, we have to be really honest that with her mobility and her range of movement at the moment, getting down onto the floor, getting back
there's
up,
no way she could do that.
that is going to be a much longer term goal. But it could be that Kitty may want to invest in like a little herb garden for a kitchen, or some plants for around the house, just so that she's got something to focus on. She can care for them,
Yeah,
water
well,
them.
she has got lots of plants around the house, but it's,
Okay.
yeah, it's something we could possibly look at. I could speak to her about that.
Yeah,
inside
I think
the
at the moment it's just about adapting those activities so that she remains engaged and motivated, you know, to participate in that reablement and things like that.
Yeah, because if she's not able to go out for, what, six weeks or possibly longer, then you need to look at her well-being, really. She's a very, very active person. Like, you know, as you know, she loves her gardening. And if she's not able to get out, then...
We've actually got volunteers in the community who will actually visit as well for an hour. They've been vetted, you know, in terms of risk, etc. So if she is a very sociable lady we're picking up, and you know, it might be something, and that's a free service actually, I hasten to add. We could actually get some people to, you know, one of our volunteers to actually to visit your mother, to talk about their interest.
Yeah, that sounds like good.
That would be
good
something.
idea, yeah.
So that's certainly part of our long-term plan. And you asked earlier about what happens after the 6 weeks. We'll be able to refer Kitty, should she have these more long-term goals, as we described them, about returning to the garden area, getting out into the sort of outside environment to do the gardening. That's an important goal to her, and we still feel that's achievable. We can get the community physio to come in and work on that then maybe once or twice a week. She can come to the home in order to do that.
And the same with getting back upstairs and getting back into her own bed and having her
We'll
living
all
room
come.
back to herself, you know.
It will all come, won't it? So can I just draw to a close now? Is that all right with everybody?
Yeah, please.
Can we just discuss the medication first? Because that is the one
I
thing
was just
that-
going to
Just
say
briefly.
that. So what we're going to do is discharge Mum with blister pack medications. Have you seen
Oh, I've
them?
seen those, yeah. the little
So
plastic
we've already
boxes.
organised that. I've spoken to pharmacy, so they will be from tomorrow morning. So as far as from a hospital point of view, as far as we're concerned, Mum is ready from tomorrow morning to be discharged. And she's largely independent on the ward. She's got her medicines in the locker beside her, which she manages herself. I give her a little bit of a hand because they're still in bottles here, which obviously with her wrist in a splint she's struggling with. But the pharmacist has been up and assessed her with the blister packs, and she's managing those. So they will start from tomorrow morning. So,
Sorry, who's going to pick those up for Mum
so
then?
I'll sort all that and we can arrange transport. I can get Mum home and get her into the house.
How's she going to? If she's on a Zimmer frame, how's she going to get up the? Because obviously there's a slight incline to the front
No,
door.
we'll get ambulance transport to get her home.
Right. Okay.
So ambulance staff will see her in with the Zimmer frame and all her belongings, and the community pharmacist will also be emailed about or communicated with about the tablets being in blister pack, and that will just continue. And then you can start the reablement.
Yeah.
We can start the reablement quite quickly, can't we?
How quick can you get the carers there then if she's
The
coming out?
carers will be arranged to start the night that she comes out.
Yeah.
But what I do
Right,
need
okay.
to reiterate is that even though I know this is a difficulty for you, but we can't discharge your mum until we have that single bed
Yeah.
downstairs. So we need you to try and work on finding that. I can have a look at some websites as well to
And
see
I
if
can
I can
help.
find
The only
Yeah.
it.
thing is
I'll
that I've got,
help
obviously, you know, like I
I'll
said,
help
I'm on nights. I'm going to run a 4 nights tonight
Mhm.
from last night, and another 3 nights. So
Are there any other family or friends that can
no,
help
I've got
with
no.
taking in
no
Shall I
charge?
phone your
I've got-
wife?
I've got my wife, but she's.
I'll
Maybe it's something we could possibly look at on a weekend, but during the week it's almost impossible, really.
I'll speak to you afterwards about this, because we can sort this out, and I'll speak to your wife afterwards.
And I will also do a home environment assessment. I will go out with the equipment and make sure that that's all fitted for your mum. So just that's just going to be chair raisers so she can get in and out of her armchair more easily is easier on her joints if her chair's a little bit higher. We'll make sure that she's discharged with the caddy for a Zimmer frame, and I'll make sure that the package of care is also
It will
in
all be
place
in
for
place.
So
her.
it'll all be in place before
Everything
she
will be
comes out.
before
of
she
hospital.
comes out.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's more than we dare.
That's guaranteed.
It's
yeah.
more than we dare do is send any patient home without it in place, because they just come back. People just come back in.
But on the medication side of it, then, if you're given the blister packs, obviously she's fine, so hopefully she'd be okay. But how do we guarantee that she's going to be taking the medication on a daily basis?
We've assessed her. The pharmacist has been down and done an assessment with her, and as I said, she is actually doing her own medicines in hospital, because we used to take all the medicines away, but they're now kept in lockers beside the bed for those people who are deemed it safe to manage like that.
Right.
And I have supervised her doing all her own medicines,
Yeah.
and even in this busy hospital environment, she's still able to remember the times and do her own medicine. So.
And although we can't ask the carers to administer medication, we can't, but what we can do is ask the carers to just check that that blister
They've
pack is
taken it.
emptied and that they've
Yeah.
been taken. And that if they haven't, they can ring their supervisor, who can then escalate it to you to have, to remind her to take
Yeah.
that
But
medication.
just to reassure you, everything, as I say, from a nursing point of view, is more than we dare do is send anybody home unsafe. Because we know that they just come back, don't they? It's not in their interest or in the hospital's
No.
interest too. So is everybody happy? Have you got anything to add?
No, nothing
to
from
add?
me.
No, nothing. I'm in a bit of a rush, but you've got my number.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll catch up with you after this. Lovely. So thank you
Okay,
everybody
thank
for
you,
coming.
everybody.
Really appreciate it. I know everyone's busy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.